welcome back to yet another political episode. So today we'll be taking a look at the electoral history of Tim Scott and who Tim Scott is. One thing we should know about Tim Scott: he is a U.S. senator from South Carolina. He, that said, is the second South Carolinian to run in this said race. South Carolina is getting a lot of attention in the Republican primaries. That said, South Carolinians have to choose who are they going to vote for. Nikki Haley, former governor, or are they going to vote for the current U.S. Senator Tim Scott? Well, I can tell you they're most likely going to all go for Donald Trump, because you have two South Carolinians, and they're like, okay, let's just not choose between the two of them and just go for the obvious answer, Donald Trump. So we're going to take a look at Tim Scott's electoral history and see if he is capable of being nominated and even beating Joe Biden in the presidential election. So taking a look here, we have his electoral history. We have here, going through the Republican primaries, you'll see that he enters politics in 2009. He officially runs in the 2008 South Carolina General Assembly in the 17th district. And he manages to win, beating two Republicans, William Bill Crosby and Wheeler Tillman, by a very good margin indeed. He managed to carry a 53% here. All right, that's the primaries. And in the actual race, he manages to win 99%. Reason? Well, Democrats and Libertarians, they didn't really file anyone to go run against him. Tim Scott won a total of 9,080 votes, while the write-ins just won 67. And let me be clear, write-ins isn't just one write-in. There's multiple write-ins. And in total, 67 people voted for the write-ins. And that means like each person got probably less than like 40, 30 votes each. So even less than, actually. So yes, Tim Scott took the House down and the probably red stronghold of South Carolina's 17th district. But in 2010, 2 years later, Scott would be running for re-election. However, he decides he's going to leave the South Carolina state legislature, and he is going to join the U.S. Congress. He is going to run. Wait, actually, hang on. Nope, I'm wrong. Well, I think. Am I right or wrong? Okay. Yes, he runs for re-election. Mr. Scott, that was later. My bad about that. So Tim Scott runs for re-election in 2010. This time, he is a part of the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina. He runs for the U.S. House of Representatives. He's now a part of the U.S. Congress. And he's running against a handful of Republicans. Now, so, like I said before, Scott ditched the state government, and now he's going to run for the federal government. You'll see Scott wins a 20-point margin victory in the Republican primaries, beating a handful of Republicans. But however, Scott doesn't officially win. You'll see Paul Thurmond and Tim Scott would advance to the runoff here. And you'll see officially Paul Thurmond is pretty weak compared to the popular Tim Scott. And you'll see that Republicans in South Carolina's 1st Congressional District largely favor him. He won a total of 68% of the popular vote compared to Paul Thurmond's 31%. So that was a big victory, but it's not over. Scott would have to run in the actual election. You'll see the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina is very conservative. So in reality, Scott didn't really have to sweat. It was mainly the primaries. And even in the primaries, in the 1st and 2nd rounds, he did very good. You'll see Scott manages to win 65% of the popular vote against the Democrat nominee, Ben Fraser. You'll see here, he gets 28%. That's a pretty low number. So Scott here winning this. And in 2012, he would run for re-election. All right, re-election, running for re-election in 2012. Scott didn't go through a primary, as according to this electoral history here, it would have said, if it did, because this is the electoral history, Tim Scott easily getting re-nominated by, I don't believe, by a primary. And he goes and runs against Bobby G. Rose. And Bobby, I believe, yeah, he got to be in the primary. Does horrible. As we know how conservative the first congressional district of South Carolina is. However, Tim Scott underperformed his first record. He winning a total of 62%. But a win's a win. This is a Republican hold. So now we're going into 2014. Scott is could be running for a third term. But instead of running for a third term, he's going to go to the other chamber of the United States Congress. He's going to run for the United States Senate here. So Scott here is going to run in this election, the 2014 United States Senate, United States special election in South Carolina. Important, though. Notice that this is a special election. Oh, this means that something must have happened. This was an unplanned election. Well, guess what? Don't worry, no one died. I think we know. South Carolinians, you should know. Jim DeMint, he resigned on January 1st, 2013 to become the president of the Heritage Foundation. Governor Nikki Haley announced the appointment of the U.S. Representative Tim Scott to fill the seat. So yes, the U.S. Representative Tim Scott took the Senate seat. As we know, the governor gets to choose who the senator gets to be. I think that's for every U.S. governor to replace the said leaving or former senator. So, yes, Tim Scott. So they already knew who Tim Scott was already. He was the senator of South Carolina before this election. So people knew who Mr. Scott was, Senator Scott was. And I think this is, and people were okay with him, according to this here. In the primary, you'll see that Scott manages to win a landslide of 89%. That's a very good win indeed. 89% of beating Randall Young to a 10% margin. So that is a very, very good win for the senator. Senator Scott, in the actual general election, you'll see, is running against Joyce Dickerson, the Democrat nominee. She manages to seize the black belts, the blue areas right here. This is a total of African-American population, like I said in my Nikki Haley video. She performs very well in the black belt, while you'll see Scott performs very well in Charleston and in other areas. And eventually, he wins the election, 61% of the popular vote. This is a very good win for him. This is his first statewide win. So we have here Scott winning, I would say his first election. I wouldn't say he was re-elected, because he got in by not an election. He was appointed by Nikki Haley. So he got elected to a full term, would be the appropriate term here, appropriate statement for full 6 years in the United States Senate. But full 6 years? Wait, no, because that's not true though, because it would be, I believe, in 2 years that Scott would have to run for re-election. You see, I think, as you see here, I believe Senator DeMint, I believe he opted out in the middle of his term. The 2010, I believe. Yeah, 2010 was when he was first elected. And then he opted out in 2014 special election. So 2014 was very unplanned. We usually don't have that seat going on in 2014, but that was unplanned. His actual re-election for election scheduled for this seat Senate seat is in 2016. So, Mr. Scott would probably get a year to 2 years to ponder all this, and he would run for re-election for U.S. Senator. He would run against Tom Dixon. But hang on. You'll see here, Republican primary, Tim Scott runs unopposed. People love him. So that's good to know. Tim Scott here winning 60%. He manages to break some counties in the Black Belt. Like these two counties were formerly counties going for, I would say, Dickerson. I believe that's her name. Let me check. Yeah, Dickerson. But now Scott flipped these counties. So 2 new counties. He manages to underperform the record, though. 60%. Scott managed to win 60% of the popular vote, while just by 1 point. I shouldn't even say it's underperform at all. Thomas Dixon, however, gets 36%. So same thing here. Another huge victory for Tim Scott. And now we're going to the 2022 election. The 2022 election would see Tim Scott's greatest and most best overall presentation in electoral history in his whole political career. He would perform 62%. But not just all. He would manage to flip a lot of Democrat counties, a lot of counties in the Black Belt. You'll see he managed to win these 2 counties. He managed to contain these 2 counties. He managed to win this county up here. So yeah, I mean, in the end, it's like 2 points than his actual from his 6 years ago. But winning county-wise, he did great. Tim Scott managed to win 62% of the popular vote, beating Christy Matthews to a 37% of the popular vote. Going down, yes, you'll see in the Republican primary, Tim Scott was running against Timothy Swain, but Swain withdrew and opted to run for the state house seat of 121. And guess what? Too bad for you, because you were defeated in the primary. Ha ha ha. But I mean, you would have been defeated anyway, Mr. Swain, because Tim Scott's so popular at this time, he probably would have destroyed you. Not to mention, you don't even have a Wikipedia page. So, yes, this is the electoral history of Tim Scott. And this is probably why, I mean, sure, he had won 3 elections, 3 landslide elections in his political career. And I think he thinks he can win. He could possibly win the primaries and beat Trump, DeSantis. What do you guys think? It's true, Tim Scott has a very good electoral history, very good political record, good electoral record overall. He has a very good winnable approach. But what do you guys think? Can Tim Scott win the primaries? Or is Trump or DeSantis going to seize the glory? Anyway, thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.